Join us in San Antonio for Doug Eagleford. Remember, operators enter the exhibit hall free. Learn more at dougeagleford.com. Welcome to this edition of Onshore Connect. I'm your host, Heather Rosenbaum. In this edition, could good times be ahead for dry gas basins? But before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor. The plunge in commodity prices has led to a rough 2 years for shale gas producers. Not only did it force a wide retrenchment of spending in the industry, but it also caused a tilt in production. Meanwhile, gas storage is at record levels. But key developments in how gas moves in the lower 48 and where it's needed outside of the country are driving predictions of an upswing in prices. Companies have continued to bet on shale gas, though not always in the obvious gas plays. In May, Range Resources announced plans to acquire Memorial Resource Development's gas assets in North Louisiana for $4.4 billion, which is the largest deal of the year. The company added a strong Gulf Coast presence to its already gassy portfolio. More recently, Antero Resources entered multiple deals to expand its position in the Marcellus and Utica shale plays by about 66,500 net acres. The rationale behind these big-ticket transactions appears to be growing demand outside the U.S. The industry might be heading towards a resurgence in natural gas prices thanks to Mexico's ever-expanding market for natural gas power generation. Since 2010, exports to Mexico have tripled. LNG exports should also pick up, though the scale of shipments may not live up to the hype. Hard Energy spoke with Brianne Daughtry, head of North American Natural Gas at Societe Generale, about her outlook in the natural gas market and possible upsides for shale gas players. Let's listen in.
We think the likelihood is very strong. We've been quite constructive on calendar year 2017 through winter 17-18 for about a year now. The market has moved up in line with our view, which is always nice to see, although not always the way it happens. And we still remain constructive on calendar 17 through winter 17-18. And by constructive, my calendar 2017 average is 350. And I think that there's upside to that even, depending on how weather materializes. It's that reduction in spend and the knock-on effect of that reduction in spend that is going to make such a difference in 2017. So you're going to have sort of a double-up effect. You're going to have the natural shale decline that comes along with the wells. That's going to start taking firmer hold. And then you add on to the fact that we have demand growth coming on in 2017, courtesy of the huge amount of investment that has been done in North American gas on the demand side of the ledger. We're talking petrochemicals, Mexico exports, LNG exports, all of those things working together to strengthen the demand side. And then on the supply side, we've actually had 18 months of retrenchment. So those two things are going to combine and converge in 2017, which leads us to be quite constructive. We definitely think that when we do get this price strengthening that we expect to come in 2017, that we will see more companies re-engage in the Haynesville. The Fayetteville has some really nice low-cost pockets as well, and of course the Eagleford, which is down in the Gulf Coast. So we really think that there will be re-engagement within those plays, which will provide better diversity for the gas production growth than what we've seen over the last few years, which has been so isolated to the Northeast. Now, I want to be careful to emphasize we do not think it's that there's going to be any sort of mass escape from the Northeast or that growth is going to necessarily stop. We just think it's going to be more measured and that it's going to encourage a different set of producers. So not just the ones that have really been anchoring gas production growth over the last few years, but really get some of those other producers that have scaled back their natural gas programs over the last 5 years, getting them back into it a little bit and seeing that growth come from several places. Again, Fayetteville, Haynesville, Eagleford, I think are probably our core three to pay attention to. We think that the export capacity for LNG is going to rise to about 5 BCFD by 2020. And then we also think that Mexico exports are going to rise towards that same type of number by 2020. Mexico is actually an area that I'm probably more bullish on than the LNG exports. Clearly, when it comes to LNG, you're going to be at the mercy of global gas dynamics and the many emerging supply factors we've got coming into the LNG world between that same 5-year time period, whereas Mexico, much more reliant, here on the U.S. shale base, particularly on the Eagle Ford. That's where the pipeline expansion is really connecting bullet pipe type of idea from the Eagle Ford down to Mexico. Mexico's demand growth, I'm also quite confident in. It's going to be tied materially to power generation as well as industrial. And we think that there's going to be, while Mexico has increased its exposure and obviously lifted itself being open to foreign investment, which has been great for the energy industry, we think at this point in time the investment's going to be most materially in pipeline as opposed to actual production out of Mexico, out of the shale that clearly extend into Mexico. We think the pipeline route is probably going to be the best avenue over the next 5 years.
This concludes this edition of Onshore Connect. We want to thank you, the viewer, and our sponsor for making this program possible. Until next time, let's stay connected. To stay up to date on the most recent hard energy videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here.